Hi everybody, Dr. Ahles here. In this short video, we're going to talk about the last organic macromolecule in the human body, and this is nucleic acids. When we talk about nucleic acids, they have all the same chemical components that we've talked about before, with the addition of phosphate. Phosphate groups are going to be critical to helping nucleic acids form their structures. So in addition to our carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen, we also see the addition of phosphate groups to nucleic acids. Nucleic acids are my polymer form of my individual pieces called nucleotides. So you've probably heard of nucleotides before. Nucleotides are monomers. They're small pieces that I use to build nucleic acids. The structure of a nucleotide is a pentose sugar along with a nitrogenous base. So let's come over here and look at a nucleotide. When I say a pentose sugar, it means a sugar that has 5 carbons in it. It can either be deoxyribose, that's the sugar in DNA, or ribose sugar, the sugar that's in RNA. Hey, the only difference between ribose and deoxyribose is I'm missing an oxygen right here. So these two are essentially the same except for that missing oxygen, which actually makes a big difference in the kinds of nitrogenous bases that we can attach to it. So like I mentioned, ribose in RNA, deoxyribose in DNA. Overall, my function of nucleic acids in the body is information storage. This is your DNA, which allows you to do all the functions in your body, but the DNA is my template for RNA, which is what makes things happen. So when we're thinking about nucleic acids, big picture, it's always information. They're storing it for me, they're giving me directions to my individual cells. For the time being, when we're thinking about nucleic acids, what you want to be able to do is to compare and contrast DNA and RNA. So when we compare DNA versus RNA, the first difference between them is their location. We find DNA only in the nucleus. It cannot leave the nucleus. RNA is made in the nucleus, but it leaves to go out to the cytoplasm, to the soupy stuff in the cell. First difference, location of these molecules. Second difference is their overall structure. DNA is a double-stranded molecule, meaning I have 2 individual strands of nucleic acids. RNA is single-stranded. It exists with 1 string of that genetic information. This difference in structure makes RNA really unstable and DNA very stable. So, structural difference that impacts how long they'll last. Another important difference between DNA and RNA is the bases that we find in them. So DNA has 2 bases called adenine and thymine that will form connections with each other across the double helix. They also have guanine and cytosine. But when we talk about RNA, RNA uses a base called uracil instead of thymine. Now, uracil is the same basic structure as thymine, but when I use my ribonucleic acid, I have to tweak it just a little bit to create this base. So anytime you see the letter U, we're looking at RNA. Anytime we see the letter T, we're looking at DNA. As we mentioned before, DNA is made with deoxyribose sugar, whereas RNA is made with ribose sugar. Where I would see on these sketches those sugars, in orange in DNA, in pink in RNA. When we think about functionally the difference between these 2 molecules, DNA is my storage information. So DNA has these little things called genes. Genes are holding directions for specific proteins that the body is going to make. RNA then leaves where I have this stored information and goes out to ribosomes to actually enable the process of protein production. So RNA is the boots on the ground getting the job done, where DNA is the head honcho in the office barking all the orders. One other compound I want to mention in this discussion here of nucleic acids, and that's ATP. Now, we already talked about ATP, but the reason we're mentioning it one more time in our discussion of nucleic acids is because of this adenosine thing. If you remember back from our other discussions of ATP, we focused on the T, the triphosphate. Remember that these 3 phosphate groups have bonds in between them that store a lot of energy. If I chop these bonds, I get that energy back. This time, though, we're not focusing on the phosphate groups. This time, we're going to focus on that adenosine part. That adenosine part is just like our nucleic acids. Look over here. We see the nucleotide adenine. Literally, this adenine is the same adenine that we find in your DNA, that letter A. Incidentally, nerd Dr. Ahles moment here too. I literally have a cat named Adenine. So why are we talking about this? Because I love adenine, obviously. So, adenosine triphosphate. It's a form of sugar with a nucleotide on it, adenosine, just like our DNA. The phosphates are the energy, the adenine and the ribose are my structure that I attach them to. Nucleic acids store information and also help us to transport energy between different parts of the cell. Now that we've talked about all of our types of organic molecules, don't forget about this last slide where I ask you, what's the polymer? What's the big name? What's the monomer? What are the names of the little pieces? Use the previous videos, use your notes to fill in these blanks on the table. Make sure we can remember these monomers and polymers.